In the US, there are 140 million Americans that have obesity and 15 million children.
Now the percentage of the people who are associated with the obesity, right, the number has got increased, the percentage has got increased, not in the one country, right, every country is suffering from this situation.
It's a disease that many people inherit from their parents, similar to alcoholism. And it's a disease that's genetically driven and epigenetically driven. It's slightly different in children, which is obviously my specialty, childhood obesity, diabetes, hypertension, cardiovascular disease, liver disease, kidney disease, you name it, even cancer.
India is considered as diabetes capital of the world, right? Same, like I think with that said, the obese percentage is also high here as well. So can you just walk us through like what this new wave of the drugs?
The GLP-1 agonists might have a role in Alzheimer's treatment or prevention, in migraines, in treating addiction or alcoholism. So we're finding all these other potential uses for the drug, which in my mind means we don't really understand how the drug works.
Hello everyone, welcome in the another episode of 21-minute Pharma Edge powered by Game of Pharma. And today we have with us a very special guest, Dr. Ivan Nadler. He is nation's leading pediatric surgeon who has been treating children with obesity for over 20 years. He is now on a mission to help both children and adults overcome obesity with expert care, education, and innovative solutions. Currently, he is adjacent associate professor at George Washington University. Welcome on the show, Ivan.
Thank you, Lokesh. Thank you so much for having me. Happy to be here.
So I think Dr. Seem, like everyone is nowadays like reading articles, listening podcasts, or when they see the news, right? One thing that is very common there is that people now the percentage of the people who are associated with the obesity, right? The number has got increased, right? The percentage has got increased, and not in the one country, right? Every country is suffering from this situation, and like with not only that, I think new innovations also come into the picture right now, right? So,
Correct.
like we are seeing a shift in how obesity is viewed and treated, right? Both like from the point of view of society and from the point of view medical as well, right? So in your words, okay, what does it mean now to say that obesity is a disease?
Right. So I think there's been a sort of common misconception that obesity is somehow a lifestyle choice,
Right.
or people sort of who suffer from obesity are, just don't exercise enough or just don't eat properly, and it's somehow their fault. Actually, there's a lot of patient blaming, patient shaming, even self shame and blame from patients who buy into the societal feeling that it's their fault, and all of that's really, frankly, wrong. It's a disease, and it's a disease that many people inherit from their parents, similar to alcoholism. And it's a disease that's genetically driven and epigenetically driven, and it's slightly different in children, which is obviously my specialty, childhood obesity, than it is in adults. But it's all basically stems from a metabolic imbalance, a propensity to gain weight without being able to lose it, and then the sequelae of that are, as we all know, diabetes, hypertension, cardiovascular disease, liver disease, kidney disease, you name it, even cancer. So it's really, in the US, there are 140 million Americans that have obesity and 15 million children. And it's crippling not only our healthcare system, but our economy in general, because we spend so much money on this disease and its related diseases. And it's, as you said, it's becoming a worldwide problem. It used to be a problem that most associated with the U.S., but now if you look at Europe, if you look at the Gulf countries, they actually have obesity rates that are just as bad as the U.S. So the disease is spreading, and thus the need to treat the disease is probably as urgent as it's ever been.
I think totally agree with your point. And then same, like as you mentioned, that it's a worldwide problem nowadays, right? So same, like India is considered as diabetes capital of the world, right? Same, like I think with that said, I think the obese percentage is also high here as well, right? Like we
Yeah.
see that people, because of the lifestyle changes, right? That I think one of the major thing that took a shift is that previously most of the persons were living in the village, right, and doing farming kind of activities which help them to burn their calories, right. Now the things are totally different. Most of the peoples are working in the corporate side, right, where they sit, their lifestyle has changed, right, and then food was also one of the part there, right. So food, stress, different factors are there, as you know, right. And I think second kind of things also, everyone is talking about the new drugs like Monjaro and
Sure.
then other drugs, right? So can you just walk us through like what this new wave of the drugs, okay, and how it's different from
Right.
GLP-1 semaglutide?
Right. So, as you mentioned, the GLP-1s actually have been around for quite a while. And the one that many people may be familiar with is liraglutide, which trade name was Saxenda, um, or Victoza. And that drug did a very nice job of controlling diabetes. And what the sort of quote unquote side effect was some mild weight loss. So then, Novo Nordisk, who makes liraglutide, they got wise and they thought maybe we can change um, actually like the physical chemistry of the drug to make it so that it can bypass the body's natural mechanisms for breaking down these GLP-1 agonists and get more weight loss out of it. And that's exactly what they did. And once that was figured out, their next step was figuring out how to actually package it, because for a long time the oral formulations would get degraded in the stomach, and so you wouldn't get enough of a serum concentration to have enough in the bloodstream to affect weight loss. That's changing now with oral semaglutide on the horizon, and then Eli Lilly has their small molecule GLP-1 agonist. That's also, both those drugs are probably going to be hitting the U.S. market anyway in 2026 would be my guess. But the question comes up about the safety of these drugs often, and I tell people, well, they've actually been around for quite a while, and we have quite an experience with them, both in children and adults, just not for weight loss. We've just used them for other things. Now we're finding out that the GLP-1 agonists might have a role in Alzheimer's treatment or prevention, in migraines, in treating addiction or alcoholism. So we're finding all these other potential uses for the drug, which in my mind means we don't really understand how the drug works. Like, we think we know how the drug works. We think it's, a gut hormone, an incretin that only impacts the, brain via sort of food noise or eating behavior or whatever. But once we start finding out all these other diseases that it can treat, I think it means that we don't really fully understand how it all works. And now the next generation drugs that are coming which I'm sure you'll ask me about in a second. But tirzepatide is a GLP-1 agonist and a GIP, gastrointestinal inhibitory peptide agonist. And now there are about a dozen drugs in development that are GLP agonists plus some other mechanism that is thought to be related to weight management or weight loss. Even diseases that we didn't think were associated, like Alzheimer's has been discussed as type 3 diabetes or insulin resistance in the brain. And that may or may not be related to obesity. But yeah, I think and addiction certainly isn't necessarily an obesity related comorbidity. So I think it's just, I think it's actually an exciting time for the science of these medications because we're learning more about different pathways and different, frankly, different receptors and different agonists that are treating human disease in different ways that we weren't really necessarily aware of previously.
Right. And I think same as you mentioned that there is an extension of the benefits, right? I think same. Every every drug comes with their own side effects as well, right? We all know
Of course.
these kind of things, right? And with these newer drugs, like I just want to understand what kind of risk are associated with these kind of drugs, right? In compared to the benefits.
Yeah. So liraglutide, which was the first GLP-1 agonist, I believe hit the market almost 10 or 15 years ago. So we actually have long-term data on GLP-1 agonists. We may not have it for semaglutide or tirzepatide, but we do for the earlier generations. So the side effects continue to be mostly GI side effects, the nausea, the vomiting, the diarrhea, all that stuff. And I think that will continue. I don't think there's going to be I think it'll be difficult for a GLP-1 formulation, even with the new mechanisms that are being explored, to avoid all of those side effects. I think there are always going to be some gastrointestinal side effects with GLP-1 medications because that's where they work. In part is in the gut where the receptors are. So, and the point that you made before is it's always a risk benefit analysis, right? So is treating your obesity or treating your diabetes more important than having some GI side effects? I think most people would answer yes. Now, again, we don't really know long term with the newer meds, but I think in general, the GLP-1 agonists are fairly safe long term.
The same, like I was having one discussion with like dean of University of Michigan, right? Related with some other conversation, but now you know that every conversation comes around this topic only because it's a hot topic in the market. So we were discussing some points, and then one thing came that government should buy these drugs as it's a kind of a pandemic, right? These obesity, and should like access this medicine to the larger population. Okay, so for countries like us, like India, right? Especially two major issues are there, like cost and access. Like Munjaro has launched there, right, recently, and then the prices are too high compared to like people buy
Sure.
those medicines, right? So I think what we need in terms of the healthcare, every country is equity, right? So how policies or government or WHO can ensure that these kind of drugs uh, can available to everyone, like beside this economic barrier, right? What's your point of view on this?
Yeah, sure. So obviously, different countries have different health systems, and it's easier to achieve health equity if you have nationalized healthcare, like Great Britain, like the NHS. Um, and in the US, much harder because of the way private and public insurance works. And it's super complicated and probably a broken system that needs an overhaul. But politically, that's a difficult uh, mountain to climb. But I think the the injectable GLP-1s like Manjaro, like tirzepatide or semaglutide are expensive, and in part they're expensive because of the delivery mechanism, the pens that are used to administer them because they're disposable and hard to scale a disposable injecting pen that is cheap and but safe. So I think the oral GLP-1s that are coming down the pike are going to be the key to some health equity. They don't work as well as the injectables in terms of weight loss, but they're still pretty good. And it may be, well, it will be that pills are more easily mass produced, more easily mass distributed, and cheaper to do both those things than the injectables. So maybe it will be that when the oral formulations are widely available, there'll be better health equity. But I also think like people have to sort of, I think that people give the obesity medications somewhat of um, a higher bar to clear because they complain that, well, if you stop your GLP-1 medication, you will gain your weight back and you get your diseases back. And so they criticize the GLP-1 medications. And my response to that is, well, that's the same thing with your blood pressure medicine or your statin for your cholesterol. If you stop taking your statin for your cholesterol is going to go back up. So why are we giving the GLP-1s a harder time about that than we would the other medications? And I actually think if we were trying to be most cost effective, we would actually, as you sort of were implying, we would get the GLP-1 oral formulations to as many people as possible because then they'll actually no longer need their blood pressure medicine or their statin. It may be that they take their GLP-1, their oral GLP-1 every day as one pill and get rid of the 2 or 3 pills that they were taking, their blood pressure medicine, their diabetes medicine, and their cholesterol medicine. So it actually may end up being the most cost-effective intervention will be mass production and distribution of oral GLP-1s. And, as you, I'm sure know, India is one of the leading producers of the generic versions of GLP-1s. And so, from a health equity standpoint, that's a whole nother discussion is whether, like obviously the drug companies are incentivized to have new drugs because they make a lot of money from those new drugs. But there will maybe be a point where the healthcare needs of the world are more important than the profitability of these companies. So we'll see where that goes.
So with that said, I think we just want to shift this podcast from fun rapid fire round where I will ask you some of the questions and you need to give answer in a one word or a phrase. Okay. So first question is if you could ban one unhealthy food from this planet, what would it be?
Well, I think sugar is still like the biggest problem, at least in the US and probably worldwide. And so I don't know, one of the I don't even know if this product still exists, but there used to be those things called Fun Dip, where it was basically a sugar stick that you would dip into like flavored sugar and then lick it as a kid. And that might be the one that I would get rid of first because like you may as well just open up a sugar packet and pour it down your throat. Like there's just no reason that we need to have candy that is, basically 100% sugar with a little bit of artificial flavoring. Like I think that would probably be my number one.
So the next question is biggest challenge you faced in your career journey.
The biggest challenge I faced in my career is the challenge that I'm still facing, which is convincing people that obesity is a disease and not a lifestyle choice.
Right. So, what's your favorite place to travel and get recharged? Right.
Yeah. So I've always been a beach person.
Okay.
I actually have a second home at a beach town in the United States, in New Jersey, which is where like I call my happy place. So if I am feeling a need to recharge or I'm stressed or whatever, I'll just go off to the beach and go into the ocean and just there's something about sort of staring at the vastness of the ocean or being in the ocean and staring at the vastness of the ocean that reminds me that we're small compared to the universe, and that whatever trials and tribulations I might be having as an individual person are again uh, on scale much less significant than what's going on in the world, the bigger world, and the bigger universe.
Cool. I think thank you so much, Evan, for this podcast. I think it was a great session. When I was having introductory call with you, I think what I have concluded is you know more than perplexity in terms of obesity and diabetes. So you are more aware of what's going on into the industry. And then I just want to have this conversation so that we can create something for our audience. And I will definitely come at your beach place whenever I will be in the US.
You're always invited, and thanks for having me. And I think for your listeners, it's super important because this is playing on your name, the game of pharma. This is the game of pharma. The game of pharma is now in the obesity world, the race to find the next best, next greatest intervention, drug, pharmacotherapy, whatever it is. So this is I mean, this is super important, as you said, hot topic. And if you're not paying attention to what's going on in the obesity drug development world, you will be missing a lot of important information.
So thank you so much. We will meet soon.